We're four friends with hot takes on food media.
And we're here to review and recap all kinds of food shows in bite-sized seasons.
Plus, virtual potlucks, cooking adventures, and food memes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hey, it's Justine.
And it's me, Meg.
Officially, LJ had her baby. You may have seen us announce it via social media. Beautiful baby boy, Riley.
Welcome to the Pod Appétit family, Riley.
Our first PA babe.
Our PAP in a pod.
Oh my God, stop. Welcome to our Season 3 digest of the Great British Bake Off UK Series 11, aka US Season 8. All this season of Pod Appétit, we've been going through each episode of the show, but now we are going to talk about the show as a whole and any and all of our leftover thoughts. But first, what have we been up to in our personal baking tents?
That sounds kind of dirty in a way.
It's Bake Off. There has to be innuendo. Meg, are you still busy? A busy bee in the kitchen?
Not as busy, no, but taking a cue from you when you shared your oatmeal recipe that you've been making a lot, there's a particular lunch that I've been making a lot, and I've just called it tomato toasts. Can you guess what might be in it? But basically, I take some cherry tomatoes and I roast them in the oven for a while with some olive oil and minced garlic, and I toast up a couple of slices of garlic sourdough bread, and on top of that bread I spread some ricotta cheese, and then top that with the roasted tomatoes and add some fresh basil on top, and I make that probably a couple times a week.
Ooh,
Nice.
That's a very ultimate tomato sandwich.
It feels very fancy, but it's actually really easy to make, and it's a nice little open face tomato sandwich thing, or tomato toast, if you will.
A toasty.
All right, Amanda, what have you been making?
I actually made stuff, guys. I made a huge batch of chicken salad for me and my family. It was a very big hit. I had to message them and be like, please save some so I can have some lunch at work the next couple days. I just need to make a sandwich, guys. It's a big hit with my family. It's one of the things that I am told I make quite well, which, as we know, isn't something that I always do. So, yeah, I mean, it's, pretty standard chicken salad, mayo, and whatever extra stuff you want in there. We were a little low on grapes. They were starting to, some of them were getting that, shrivelly, so I didn't use the shrivelly grapes because gross. But since we were a little lower on grapes than I thought, I really went hard on, walnuts. So it was a very walnut heavy chicken salad, but I actually really liked that in this version that I made, especially even when I was having leftovers at lunch the next couple of days. It really added that nice crunch to have the various textures.
Sounds good. It
Nice.
sounds kind of like Waldorf salad plus chicken.
Yeah, I guess a little bit. It just kind of, there's no marshmallows though. Don't worry. It's just
Oh, I don't put marshmallows in Waldorf salad.
So there's marshmallows.
But yeah, what about you, Justine? What have you been up to?
Well, I've tried preparing 2 new vegetables. I got a Romanesco.
Ooh.
I know, it's fancy cauliflower.
That's the one with the cool spiral, right?
Yeah, totally. And I also got an eggplant. The eggplant didn't go over too well. I would try again. I'm still not the biggest fan of eggplant, but I just also feel like I'm not doing it justice at this point. I mean, I'm just roasting it, but I think also we cut it up too small and it shrivels a lot. I don't know. There was a whole, I'm still figuring out eggplant.
Yeah, I was going to ask how you cut it up. I don't know the right.
Diced?
I feel like eggplant is tricky because it can easily get too slimy if you don't cook it quite right. And it's one of those dishes that kind of oxidizes as soon as you cut it, kind of like potatoes do. So even preparing it, yeah, I think it's a bit tricky. I don't really have a go-to eggplant recipe myself.
But the Romanesco, came out perfect. You just treat it like cauliflower, and it's just like a different variety. Good way to just add variety, and it's weird looking, and it'll wow all your roommates. Be like, what are you doing with this alien plant in the fridge?
I love how it looks. It's got that natural fractal, which is just really cool.
A+ would recommend. Oh, another thing, I was inspired by one of Molly Baz's recent recipes, and I made her like peanut butter sauce and used that for some of my veggies. And it's a basic, peanut butter soy sauce,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Whisk, water, sriracha. Yeah, I don't want to steal all of her secrets and put them out on the air.
You'll be forced to join her Patreon like I just did.
No, but it was good. Yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Nice.
As I said, today we are digesting this season of the Great British Bake Off. And there were a lot of changes, but I'm going to do like a brief overview of the season right now, and then we'll get into it. So Jibibo 2020 was hosted by returning host Noel Fielding and a new host, Matt Lucas, who replaced Sandy Toksvig. The returning judges were Paul Hollywood and Prue Leith. The filming of this series was affected by COVID-19. The cast and crew had to live in a self-contained biosphere. The series was won by Peter Sawkins, with Dave Friday and Laura Adlington finishing as runners-up. Sawkins is the first Scottish winner of the program and also the youngest winner in the show's 10-year history at the age of 20.
I did not know the last names of most of the contestants until I saw your notes here, Justine, and the fact that Dave's last name is Friday, I just found infinitely hilarious. I don't know why.
I loved that too. Dave Friday.
Dave Friday.
Dave Friday. Like, of course that's his name. I don't know why. It just cracked me up.
Sounds like a PI name in a film noir. Yes. I'm Dave Friday.
Yes.
Only solves baking-related crimes.
I want to watch that show. Oh, no, there's a Hallmark show that is baking-related crimes.
Plenty of cozy mystery series all about that out there.
So, you guys, general takes on this season. I know we are big fans of the show and have watched maybe previously all seasons, some, most, lots. Mm-hmm. How did this season stand out to you?
You mentioned it at the top, but maybe the biggest difference was, of course, COVID. Thanks, COVID. Mm-hmm. The pandemic has changed everything. So it really affected the show in a lot of ways. Usually the show is filmed over the course of 10 weeks, but this one was 6 weeks. And I can't help but wonder if maybe that truncated timeline really put extra pressure on the bakers. They obviously didn't have as much time to prepare for each bake. Maybe they were feeling the stress a bit more. Maybe that contributed to some messier bakes than we're used to, perhaps. So I feel like the specter of COVID was kind of looming over the entire season. But on the other hand, I have to say that when it was airing, I really, really appreciated the presence of baking show in my own life because, again, pandemic. So it was nice to have this wholesome respite that the baking show provides.
Agreed. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up as well because they usually in the old format, in the old and pre-pandemic days,
the before times.
They would do one episode a week. Now they had to do 2 episodes a week, which only gave them like 2 prep days.
Mm-hmm. I also can't help but wonder if this is what the 2021 season is going to be like as well, because as you're listening to this, as you all know, we're still in the pandemic, the UK as well, and they're going to have to start filming pretty soon. They usually film in the summer, so I know that's still a few months out, but I can't help but wonder if they're going to take the same precautions in order to stay on schedule.
Yeah, I'm sure that's something their production team is already discussing and trying to figure out various contingency plans depending on what goes on, especially with, new variants of the virus and things like that going on.
If they're forced to do it again for another season, I won't mind too much because I'll be very happy to have Bake Off on my TV screen.
Fair. Yes, definitely. I wanted to touch a little bit on the change in the hosting with Sandy leaving and Matt Lucas coming in. For me, I really enjoyed Matt Lucas as a host on this. I discussed it with my mom a little bit. She said she felt like Sandy leaving made it to where Noel had to be the straight man a little bit more. And I guess I can see that to some extent, but I feel like you can also see this genuine friendship that it like predates Bake Off between Noel and Matt that I think adds to their chemistry.
Interesting.
Yeah. I also feel kind of that way of like, they're two goofy guys. So you don't get like that normal comedic play where one person's a goofy one, one person's the straight one, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's actually why I liked Noel and Sandy better, is because exactly for that reason. Sandy was more of the straight man. Of course, she was also hilarious in her own right. I love Sandy, but it was more like she had this kinder, gentler, more low-key humor to bounce off of Noel's zany, wacky, sort of irreverent humor. So Noel and Sandy remain my ultimate top-tier favorites. I think that Sandy brought out the best in Noel in a way. And I've just always really liked Noel. I have a lot of goodwill toward him because I'm a big fan of the Mighty Boosh and the IT Crowd, which predated him being on the Bake Off. So I just love Noel. Although I will say of Matt that upon rewatch of this season, I liked Matt a lot more. I think it was just a matter of getting used to his comedic stylings and him as a host.
Yeah, I feel like the only time I was like, what is happening, is when they would do jokes or references that were really obscure.
Yeah, I have to say Matt's brand of humor maybe isn't my favorite. He was very referential and referential to British stuff, surprise, surprise. But being an American, a lot of it went over my head, and therefore a lot of it just felt kind of flat for me.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Do you guys remember when they had the little educational segments, like when Sandy went to the eel pie restaurant? Do you guys remember these?
Yeah, I remember those. Or like would talk about like the background of a specific bake or something, like the historical background and things like that.
Yeah, and Sandy would go on location and talk to people and get historical background on the bakes. I kind of miss that. I also want to briefly mention Mel and Sue, just because we might not ever cover the Great British Bake Off again, so this might be the opportunity to do it. But Mel and Sue were great too, and I read a little bit more about their time on the Bake Off, which made me like them even more and forced me to wonder, maybe they were the best judges. But so I don't know if you guys know this, but Sue revealed in her memoir and in interviews that she and Mel almost walked off the set when they first started filming because production was trying to get them to coax tears out of contestants or like,
Oh, wow.
and get them to sort of play up the drama. And they basically said, no, that's not the kind of show we want it to be. That's not the kind of hosts we are. So they sort of outright refused to amp up the drama or to be exploitive of the contestants, which was really great. And Sue also said that sometimes when the bakers were having a bit of a meltdown or crying, they would go over and shield them with their jackets so that they couldn't be filmed, or sometimes they would just curse a lot because it sort of made that segment unairable. And it was a way of them protecting the contestants against the sort of like voyeuristic, let's see these guys have a meltdown type of attitude. And I found that very wholesome, and I think maybe it helped create the show as we know it today.
Yeah, that's one of the things primarily that I like about Bake Off, is that it's not like an American reality drama. Like everybody's upset all the time, crying all the time. Sometimes, but not all the
Yeah, I feel like the way I think of like that same show, but the American like drama version is Project Runway. how that is edited to make it seem like everybody's always on the brink of a meltdown and they're angry and they're sad and it's just like constant drama. And I agree that I like that wholesomeness in this show, that it's more about supporting each other and just liking baking as opposed to trying to create drama between the contestants.
Yeah. Especially in like the reality show, like On the Fly segments, they get contestants to talk shit about each other.
And all of those in Great British Bake Off, I feel like it's more that they're reflecting on their own bakes or their own experience as opposed to the other contestants.
Definitely. Well, so the contestants may not be talking shit about each other, but do we have any thoughts as to, let's say, the caliber of this season's contestants?
Yeah. I feel like we touched on that a little bit. Like we hinted that we'd be talking about that. And I know I had said something about in the finale when Prue had said like, oh, these are some of the best bakers or whatever. And I was like, really, Prue? Really? I think it's also because of compared to the previous season, that really did feel like some of the best bakers ever on the series. And then to go to this season where it felt a little more harried, like you had said, the kind of looming of COVID over it. And something I wondered is, do you think the quote unquote caliber of baker for this season was lower because only certain people were willing to go into a quarantine bubble and not be around friends and family for 6 weeks?
Yeah, like I definitely think that like we got a lower caliber of baker because people can't leave their families, especially if they're the primary caregiver, you know?
But the people who were the primary caregivers, like Mark with a C and Ermine, they had their children in the bubble with them. But point taken for sure. I bet there's lots of people who it just would have been too disruptive to their lives to be in a baking bubble for 6 weeks.
Well, I would think financially also, because in other seasons of Bake Off, you see what people are doing as their typical like everyday job as well. Whether, you know, you've seen all sorts of people, whether they're like teachers or nurses or, you know, architects or whatever it is that they're doing. And I feel like because of the nature of the bubble this year, which was definitely needed, but if you're the primary breadwinner in the family or you don't have that luxury of being able to take off 6 weeks from work and not have that financial backing, then there was just no way that you would be able to be a contestant this season.
Definitely. I'm sure it did limit their contestant pool.
But as we said before, we'd rather have Bake Off than no Bake Off.
True.
And also not to be too mean because they are all very talented, for sure. I'm not trying to say that they don't have talent or aren't creative or aren't good bakers. All of them are better than I am, for sure. It's just maybe compared to some other seasons, not quite as impressive of bakes, in my opinion.
I think what really did them in was kind of that brownie thing. To just see something so simple partway through the season that it was like, at this point, you should be ramping up instead of down. I think that just kind of solidified in general, not just with us, but I think kind of on the internet also, like, are we sure these are the same? These are the best bakers? They can't do brownies? You know, that kind of thing.
I mean, after 11 seasons of the show, maybe they've gone through most of their potential contestant pool, because not only do these people have to be eligible as far as their baking skills, but, you know, it takes a certain personality to want to be on TV or to be able to be on TV like we were talking about. So maybe just as every year goes by, they have fewer people to choose from. Although Peter, to talk about the winner again, I think it's awesome that Peter won. I think that he represents, hey, there is this whole other generation of young people that might be chock full of amazing, talented bakers. So I'm actually really looking forward to the next upcoming seasons. I have a feeling we're going to see maybe younger contestants.
Speaking of, they do have a show for kids.
They do. Junior Bake Off or something like that.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about Peter a bit more. I don't think I gushed about him enough in our last episode.
Really? Okay, Go for it. Your last chance.
I
Get it
know.
all
Well,
out.
since we're doing an overview, I really liked him from the start, and I just wanted to emphasize again that he seemed like a really sweet person. He cooked all those gluten-free bakes for his gluten-intolerant brother, which is just super sweet. And in the finale, Prue said that he was like a grandson to her, and he was eager to learn, and, quote, you can't not like him. And I thought that was very true.
It's very true. Peter wasn't my person I was cheering on from the beginning. My roommate, she was all team Peter. She knew, like, he's gonna get it. But like until like Lottie was out and all, then I was just like, Lottie.
Lottie was great. Should we talk about Lottie and some of our other favorite contestants?
Yes. Lottie and her Viking metal yoga.
Absolutely amazing.
I was very sad when Lottie was sent home because I really wanted to see other bakes she would make. She was one of the few bakers where she had something surprising or you weren't really sure what she was going to do. She reminded me of Kim Joy and Helena in a lot of ways, just because she would go on this like really creative jaunt. And the Viking boat was a great example. The mushroom jiggle cake. Also, even though the execution was horrible, that cassette tape was an interesting idea. And I would have loved to see what she would have done in the last episodes.
Yeah, that was just, for reals, if that had come together, that would have been like top of the pack. Like you're pushing, you're going the extra mile, you're thinking creatively. But if you only had 2 more days to be like, this doesn't work.
Yeah, she was, I mean, I've not been quiet about this. She was my favorite. I liked her aesthetic and I liked her banter with Noel throughout the season. And I do feel like her presence was very missed once she was gone.
I agree. She had a definite, distinctive personality. And I know that not everyone really liked her deadpan, dry humor, but I happened to quite enjoy it. And I think maybe she played it up for the cameras a little bit, which I don't see as a criticism because we're here to be entertained, you know, and they're all putting on personas to different degrees as far as being on television goes. And yeah, I really liked her. She was really missed. I liked her frenemy rival relationship with Mark with a K.
What a dear.
He was another, I think, favorite of mine, was Mark with a K. I mean, I liked both of the Marks, but...
God, they're such sweet people, you know?
Yeah, that's one reason why I liked Mark K. He was just always in really good humor. He was always laughing. He was always smiling. I like watching people like that on TV.
He had a lot of great ideas, too, and a lot of... I talked about it before, thinking sort of multiculturally. Like... automatically, not having it to be a part of the brief, to be like, oh, I'm inspired by Turkish things, I'm inspired by Indian things, like...
Yeah,
he said in his, I guess, biography on the website that he travels to various places in Asia and Africa a lot for work. So he drew a lot of inspiration from his travels, which I really like as well.
I want to talk about a controversial contestant, because this is something I had discussed with my sister this past week while I was preparing for this episode. Justine, I'm sorry, I'm going to bring up your least favorite person, Rowan. I found him a fun little character and being a music teacher and really into his little vests and things like that. I can understand your frustration in not liking him as a contestant. But like when I was talking with my sister about it this past week, she goes, oh yeah, he was never going to last long on the show. And she's like, but I just found him delightful. And maybe that says something about me and my sister, that we like slightly elderly gay men who are music teachers. I don't know. But we just found him delightful. And I just wanted to say he needed to go, obviously, and not stick around for a long time. But I found him to be creative and interesting.
I liked Rowan too. I like that he was surprising, although he did not always execute to the degree that he wanted to or needed to. But kind of like Lottie, he had creative ideas, and I like that. The Shell Lighthouse, very cool idea. I honestly really liked his Marie Antoinette, and I think it would have been great if he had been able to execute those shoe buns for the hair. And Amanda, like you were saying, he has so many hobbies. I was looking at his biography on the website, and he's such a Renaissance man. He says that he's interested in gardening and flowers, swimming, cycling, horseback riding, music, arts, theater, making waistcoats. And also, he apparently really loves the Georgian era, the 18th century.
It makes
and he
so
said
much
that he's
sense.
Yeah, he said he's always going to the library and reading stuff about the 1700s. And I thought, of course he is.
Okay, that's adorable. I don't hate him. He was just on one episode too long, like one episode too many.
Yeah, I think he left on episode 3 when in reality he probably should have left on episode 2.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I'm saying. I don't hate the guy.
I want to be his friend. I don't know that. And I would eat his food, but like he doesn't need to impress me. I'll just eat a good bake, and that's fine. Like, and we can talk about Georgian things because I'm reading books based in the Georgian era right now. So yeah.
Speaking of spin-off shows we don't get here in America, they also had a show called An Extra Slice, which would be interviews with the contestants who had been kicked off the show, who had recently left the show. And sometimes it was an opportunity for them to have a sort of redemptive bake, like, look at what I can do when I have all the time in the world. And I just happened to see some photos from Rowan's episode, and he seemed to pull off a very impressive looking cake.
Did you see that Dave asked his partner to marry him on Extra Slice?
I did, yes. And she said yes.
Oh my God. That's adorable.
Very cute.
I just wanted to mention Ermine again real fast. I know we talked about her a lot throughout the season, but I did very much enjoy her as well.
Sometimes I was like, watch out, Ermine, don't go too rogue. It's gonna not work out.
We saw what happens when Rowan went rogue. It doesn't work. Also, quick shout out to Sura. I thought she could have gone farther. It was too bad. She was never really in the bottom until the episode she was sent home. So bad day, got sent home. And also Mac, I would have liked to see more of him and his beekeeping.
Yes.
Aww. Okay, we are going to take a quick break right now, but we'll be back digesting more of Jabibo. And we're back. Let's dish about our judges. I don't know why I'm silly today. Mr. Paul Hollywood. We've talked about him a lot this season and how he's not as Mr. Know-It-All as he'd like to be, huh?
Paul's an interesting character. Paul, for sure, is putting on a persona for this show. And I feel like maybe 90% of his arrogance is all character, is all for show. And he knows it, and Prue knows it, and the contestants know it. So I have a feeling that maybe what he doesn't show to the camera is maybe just as kind and nice as everyone else on the show. He's interesting. I don't know. I kind of am really annoyed by him half the time, but also really love him at the same time. It's complicated.
Oh, Paul Hollywood. So part of my feelings with Paul Hollywood involved that I'm pretty sure my mom has a crush on him because she has watched every single video on YouTube or on the internet that is available that he has been in. There was this whole time throughout this season of Pod Appétit where I'd like walk in the kitchen and she'd be watching just like Paul Hollywood do other things. I don't know. I also feel like it's a complicated relationship. Sometimes I'm just like, dude, like just calm down now. Like you don't have to be that stern. Like just chill out. But I think there is something like that where he's putting it on for the cameras for this.
If I had to describe his persona, it would be that he's the intimidating one. You know, he's the one you have to impress. If you earn the handshake with a capital H, it's the end all be all because he's just so strict and so knowledgeable and knows so much about baking. So that's how I would describe the persona. Of course, he has those steely blue eyes and he just skulks around the baking tent looking judgmentally at everyone's bakes. And I do feel like that's mostly put on.
I feel like he is slightly cranky baking dad. Justine does not like that.
Justine's making a face.
More cranky than slightly. I feel like we talked about his actual recipes, some of them we've been like, what, sir? Explain yourself. So I don't think he's the be-all end-all of Mr. Bread.
No, I agree. And I have to say I've never really been tempted to get any of his cookbooks. I don't know. I feel like he's a great TV personality. I don't feel like I could learn the most from him as far as baking goes. I think there are so many other people whose cookbooks I'd buy over his. He's got a great persona. He's got a great judging personality. And I guess that's all I really need from him as far as the show goes. And I also appreciate that he seems fine with being the butt of the joke a lot of the time in the show. They set him up to be the punchline, and he seems totally fine with that, which I like.
Yeah.
That sweater he wore for the Christmas special with the fox or the wolf or whatever it was on the sweater with the steely blue eye. I loved that wardrobe choice.
He also hit his 100th episode this season.
Oh, wow.
He sure did. So Prue taking over for Mary Berry is kind of like we talked about with the changing of the guard with the hosts. The initial reaction is, oh no, how could you? That person is irreplaceable. And I do really love Mary Berry, but I don't know. I think I might like Prue more. I kind of love Prue.
Prue is like more, I'm gonna be like forgiving, but like she's got like a lot of leeway in being like, no, this is great.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was just thinking I like Prue a lot, but every now and then I do miss Mary Berry.
Yeah.
There's something, I think it's just because there's something about Mary Berry that's very like everybody's grandma in some ways. Whereas Prue, like in this season when Prue says she's 80 and the internet was like, I'm sorry, what now? Like, I know that was something in my household that when that first happened, my sister and I kept being like, are we sure she's 80? Because she looks like she's maybe 70. I know they always like kind of acted up a bit of like, oh, she's the posh one. But she really does, like, she always has like those statement necklaces and she's got her blazers.
I love her statement necklaces.
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah, that woman's got style.
Yeah.
She sure does. When Prue first came on the scene, my concern was that she was just going to be like an imitation of Mary Berry. I thought maybe they had found someone who was like Mary Berry, but wasn't her. But I think really the only similarity is that they are older British posh women. You know, their personalities are quite different. I feel like they both bring something different to the table. I don't find myself comparing the two too directly, so I rather like Prue.
Yeah, I'm not like, oh, fire Prue, bring Mary Berry back or anything like that. It's just every now and then I miss a comment about a soggy bottom.
Yeah, the soggy bottoms are missed. And I know that LJ hates Prue's catchphrase, that it's worth the calories. And I have to agree, not the best catchphrase, not as exciting as soggy bottoms. Yeah. I guess the only thing I don't like about Prue is that I feel like Mary and Paul were more like equals. I feel like their judging was equal. Whereas I feel like sometimes Prue is treated more like a sidekick to Paul. Yeah. I seem to get the impression that Paul's opinion trumps Prue's.
Like, it matters what he says.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't the Paul show.
Yeah. Was it Laura who in the first episode said that her goal was to impress Prue? Someone said that their goal was to impress Prue. And I just really liked that because usually people come on the show and say, oh, I really want a handshake. I really need to impress Paul. So I was just happy that at least one contestant was thinking about Prue the whole time.
Aw. Yeah, I'd want to impress Prue. Prue's my gal.
Yeah,
Prue,
definitely.
Prue.
Just put a lot of booze in it and you will impress her.
That's true.
So, wrapping up, digesting Jabibo. Let's ponder some questions like we did when we wrapped up Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. One being, who do you think the audience is for this show?
Us.
Yeah, us. Women in their 30s to 50s. and beyond. I don't know, middle-aged women and home bakers.
I would say younger women as well. My sister's 20 and she loves this show. Both of my sisters are in their 20s and they're obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. I think there's also something of, because, I mean, with Peter winning this season too, I think you have to think about that younger generation that are also enjoying this show, whether it's here or in the UK.
Yeah, I do feel that it has gained popularity in the past few years, having been acquired by Netflix.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you can dismiss the Netflix accessibility of it for a younger generation able to just binge through.
And a wider audience as far as geographically wider audience. Yeah, Americans, anyone else who can access Netflix.
Yeah, that's why a part of me felt like this season they were appealing more to that Netflix American audience with like the bus cakes and other sort of silly viral things, which I'm like, would past Jabibo have done this? But also I feel like I was being particularly harsh on this season with like the group of contestants and whatnot that we've already talked about.
This season did feel more gimmicky than others, more viral type challenges. I would think maybe it's a combination of this wider audience, this American audience, and also just the fact that the show's been going on for 11 seasons and they feel like they can't repeat themselves or that they need to one-up themselves every season.
I mean, I would love it. Just every season, just do a Swiss roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wondered a little bit if some of that had to do with, one, that this was taking place in the pandemic, and so everybody's doing things on social media more and online more. So I wondered if there was some of that, let's get stuff that people can talk about online because that's where everybody is right now. Mm-hmm. And not to speak for LJ, but like she has her cookbook club and stuff. And I'm sure they've talked about cooking shows and stuff while they do their dinners and things, but that's not a possibility right now. So all of the discourse, instead of being something you can talk over at a dinner party or something, is forced to be online, and then how do you get people to make sure they're talking about it, kind of thing.
That's an interesting take.
By making viral cake busts that everyone can laugh at.
Those Freddie Mercury memes, though, they were great. Okay, so last question. Would you recommend this show to your family, friends, followers?
I would personally definitely recommend this show, not to everyone, but I don't think there's anything in the world that I would recommend to absolutely everyone. So I guess I would say if you liked previous seasons of The Great British Baking Show, you'll like this. Essentially, it's more of the same. We have talked about how we felt this season was different in various ways, but at its core, it's Jabibo. It's what you expect and tune in for. You still get the baby ducks. You still get the bucolic B-roll scenery. You get everything that you want out of it. And if you haven't watched Bake Off before, if you like cooking shows, if you like baking at home yourself, you'll probably enjoy this show.
Yeah, I would recommend this. I mean, I've mentioned I watched this with family and stuff, and with my husband, we watch Great British Bake Off, but he's several seasons behind. So I will watch this season again as he and I go through Bake Off more and more.
Yeah, I would recommend this show, especially if you're someone who is used to American reality TV shows. And this is a bit of a break and it's a bit different. So it might be a bit of a palate cleanser.
I think that's something, even before we started Pod Appétit, that we used to talk about in Lady Pod Squad when we would watch this before we all became co-hosts together, was that it was like this nice little, like, made your soul feel good, like this little happy show that you could kind of like heal yourself a little bit. Like, I know we talk about that a lot by watching this and like Queer Eye, and just kind of like make you believe in humans again kind of show.
Believe in humanity and baking.
Yay! That wraps up all the talking we're gonna do about Jabibo for now.
I love that every time you say it, it's a little bit faster. Jabibo.
Let's move along to our back burner. Whoosh.
Flame sound effect.
As we mentioned previously, the next season of Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes will be a March Madness. We asked y'all listeners to submit to us what shows you'd like us to cover, and oh my god, did we get a lot more responses than I was expecting.
Yeah, big thank you to everyone who reached out and offered a suggestion. It was super appreciated.
We have tallied the results. We have culled things down. So now we have our bracket of 8. Da, 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 da. We are going to tell you all about them to let you know who you'll be voting for. Da, 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 da. First up, we've got Nadia Bakes. Nadia Hussain rose to fame after winning the 6th series of the BBC's Great British Bake Off in 2015, and with Nadia Bakes, she travels around the United Kingdom to visit extraordinary bakeries and responds to emergency call-outs to visit members of the public who are organizing a big celebration that requires a tasty bake for a hungry crowd. This was suggested by Marion Reed and Katie Parker.
Next up, we have Stump Sohla. In the Babish culinary universe, Sohla El Whaley spins a wheel with a variety of challenges that may or may not stump Sohla as she attempts to cook a classic meal. This one was suggested by Art History for All, Heidi from Vibrant Visionaries, and at Moral Purple.
Our next contender is Sweet Heat. On Food 52, twice a month, Rick Martinez brings us recipes built on his favorite flavor profiles, sweet and spicy, from his kitchen in Mazatlan. This was suggested by Heidi from Vibrant Visionaries and by the Edmonton Tourist.
The next contender is Chef's Table, a Netflix series. Some of the most renowned chefs in the world share their deeply personal stories, inspirations, and unique styles. Each chef's discipline and culinary talent is explored while he or she prepares an awe-inspiring creation, suggested by Eli and Rachel Casper.
Next, we have Chetna Makan on Food 52. Chetna Makan, cookbook author and former contestant of The Great British Bake Off, cooks quick and delicious recipes, often inspired by her home country of India, on Food 52's YouTube channel. This was suggested by Margaret and the Boring Books for Bedtime Sleep podcast.
Next up, Taste the Nation with Padma Lakshmi. In Taste the Nation, award-winning cookbook author, host, and executive producer Padma Lakshmi takes audiences on a journey across America, exploring the rich and diverse food culture of various immigrant groups, seeking out the people who have so heavily shaped what American food is today.
Next up, we've got The Chef Show on Netflix. Writer, director, and food enthusiast Jon Favreau and Chef Roy Choi explore food in and out of the kitchen with accomplished chefs and celebrity friends.
And our final selection in the top 8 is Kim Joy. Kim Joy Hewlett was a finalist in the Great British Bake Off Series 9 and now has her own YouTube show teaching you how to make her cute and creative bakes from her 2 recipe books.
We will reveal on Twitter who is going head-to-head every day and will be running this March Madness beginning the first week of March. Da 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 da.
Yeah, so stay tuned on Twitter, vote for your favorite, and then the winner will be the show that we cover next season.
Oh my god, I'm so
I
excited!
am too. I think it'll be interesting to see what listeners, like, I don't know, teams or like camps they get into and like push for a winner that they want.
Yeah, be a cheerleader for the show you want to see.
So good. Guys, this is going to be super exciting. And now here's Meg shouting out everybody else who wrote in.
We just want to say a big thank you to everyone who gave us their show suggestions. Even if we didn't pick yours for the final 8, we are super interested in everything you suggested. I know that I personally have a much longer list of things I would like to watch. So thank you, everyone, including Michael, Nessie, Deconstructing Damsels podcast, Paul from Varmints podcast, Reformed Bandits, Fatima, Tanya, Rhea, and the Lab Partners podcast. Thank you for sending in your suggestions.
So to further some more shout outs, thank you to everyone on Twitter who decided what the best Girl Scout cookie is. Samoas, yes. Special shout outs to Deconstructing Damsels podcast and Michael. Thank you to Cat Lily Cooks and Mary on Instagram for commenting on Meg's delicious food. Meg is a beautiful food stylist. Like, I don't know how she does
a recipe from a meal kit. I didn't think it up myself.
The lies. No. Extra shout outs to Muzzle Tov Cocktail, Nessie, Lieutenant Sandwich, So I'm Watching This Show podcast, and also Cameron Flynn for wishing us a happy Valentine's Day.
Aw.
I know. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and we would love to read that. It would help us out greatly. But keep checking us out and supporting us on all facets of social media. We love hearing from you. Next week on the podcast, it's going to be awesome because it's our potluck episode. You guys 100% will love this, but you'll have to tune in then to find out.
It's a secret.
Okay, till next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter and Instagram at pod_appétit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Are you looking for a history podcast to grab some quotes for a last-minute paper? Or maybe your presentation on Jane Eyre needs a punch-up?
Then do not listen to us.
Do not.
Like, we're begging of you.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Kelsey, and we host Make It Modern, a podcast where we talk about history, literature, and all things made before the year 2010 in a way that would probably be frowned upon by any teacher.
We basically delve into the past and stumble into the present.
We discuss things like what type of rosé is appropriate for a medieval execution,
and how we've all been Bingley'd one time or another.
So if you love hearing about people, places, and things with so many issues they could be a Julia Michaels song, join us every Thursday on Spotify and iTunes.
And be sure to follow us on Facebook at Make It Modern, and also on Twitter and Instagram at @MIM_podcast.